Hello and welcome. I am Promise Okon and this is Community Update. Our guest is a well-known personality in the African community here in Nova Scotia. He has served in different capacities on various boards and organizations since 1988 when he arrived here in Canada from Zambia, which is the Central Africa. Elias Mutale is a name that cannot be ignored when it comes to bringing together Africans living in Nova Scotia. It's good to have you here, Reverend.
Thank you. Thank you,
Awesome.
Promise. You guys are very kind.
Thank you.
Appreciate the introduction.
Right. So, seeing this, first thing that comes to mind is are we having the FIFA trophy here or something?
The
Tell us a
FIFA
little
World Cup
about-
tournament.
Yes. So I know that recently you hosted a tournament where
Yes.
more than 12 African countries were represented there. which is
Formerly
interesting.
8.
Formerly 8. Nice. Tell me a little bit about that tournament and
All
the
right.
outcome.
This was the Zambian Nova Scotia Association African Cup of Nations tournament.
Right.
Ever since coming to Metro in 98, I've always wanted to be able to keep the African Nations Cup tournament going. We finally got the first one in 2017, and there has not been another since then. So this past weekend, we were able to host another tournament, and we had 8 former entries. There was combined Team Sudan, Team Eritrea, Team Oromo, Team Zambia, Team Ghana, Team Cameroon, Team Somalia. I think I was going to forget Somalia.
Okay.
And Team Nigeria.
Oh, nice.
And there were other teams that would have joined, but the facility could only allow us 10 in the configuration we had. And so we were full to capacity. And that tournament was organized to give every team a minimum of 4 games. And because we love to play soccer, that was very, very attractive. What I loved the most was the atmosphere that we had. The community came. Each of the teams were well supported by their communities. We had drummers to open the ceremony, so you know how nice the drums are. They just create the African atmosphere so well. And so they marched the teams in as the teams were holding their flags, walked into the sound of drums. It was quite an atmosphere. And the sense of community that was established there caused my nephew, who in between playing wanted to run back home to bring his wife and his 2 children so they could come and be part of the community.
Wow.
And even the tournament was organized with community in mind.
Okay.
So yes, we had the men playing football, but we also had a spot for the women and a spot for the children. We ended up with not enough women to have the game, but that time was given to the children. So they were there on the field having so much fun and never wanted to leave, which was really, really nice. And it was a great sense of community. In the end, Sudan won, and they were crowned the champions of African Nations Tournament January 2023.
Well, that's beautiful, taking us through all that happened during that tournament. Right. So the focus here is the association now. And we would like to commend them for what they have done, which you represent anyways. Tell us a little bit about that association and what is your position in that association?
All right. The Zambian Nova Scotia Association is very precious because my own wife is the founding director of the Zambia Nova Scotia Association. Many, many years ago when we came to Metro, we wanted to continue the work of community building. Wherever we go, we are community builders. And so she was thinking, we really need to give our children and eventually their children a community. So we started to do the work. Back then, she started to host international students, primarily from Zambia. So she would say to our Zambian students, bring your friends at Christmas, bring them at Easter, bring them at Canada, bring them at Independence, Zambia Independence. Let them come and meal. let them come and have a meal. She was hosting. One Independence Day, she hosted 79 people at our home. 79 students, many of them with nowhere to go, to go and enjoy a festive day. Because we found out that our Zambian students had friends. My friend comes from Tanzania. Can I bring her? My friend is from Kenya. He wants to come. In the course of that, we met lots of young men and women for whom we became the parents in the diaspora. And so it was very, very fulfilling that a small association could expand and have this kind of reach. We wanted to do cultural things so that our children away from their natural habitat can have some of those advantages from home. So that the elders of the community can impart the wisdom to the younger ones. And keep the community connected with a variety of events, so that there is that continuity of a little bit of home away from home. After about 5 years, we had the first elections and a new executive was voted in. My wife went in as a starter volunteer.
And what year was that? Sorry to cut in.
It's a long time ago. I actually can't remember the year.
Must have been quite a long time indeed.
Yes, somewhere in the 90s. And
just actually going through that introduction, clearly you've been here for quite a while, and you probably among those who have laid the path to which today we've walked on today. Some of us who have been here not quite long, as long as yourself. Can you share with us a little bit about what your experience was like versus what you see today?
Yes. When we came, we lived in Warfield, Nova Scotia. That was a good place to start because the university was very cosmopolitan. It was semi-international, I would say. So that allowed us to interact with quite a few other people at school. And the International Students' Night was always a very special night, and it brought the whole community to come and taste the tastes of the international world. So that was very, very special. And being in the ministry also gave us connections that others might not have. But when you come into another territory, you always find some challenges. So we could see the barriers, especially for African Nova Scotians. Having been marginalized out of the economic activities of the province for centuries, you could see that they are still way behind everyone else, and that the dominant society was not working hard enough to close the gap. And so we joined that work to help encourage and inspire local leaders at local level in our community, as well as at higher levels, to be more mindful about the work of integrating communities, so that even if the communities are isolated, but there should be a point of integration that allows participation in the larger economic and social strata of life. That's how you elevate everyone and no one gets left behind. So it was hard to be as few as we were from Africa. It was very hard. But we worked hard to get together. If you saw an African person in town, you immediately wave. You don't know where they come from, but you wave, and they wave back. And we built networks like that with people from Tanzania or North Africa or South Africa. And we when we came to Metro, we still used to travel back to Warfield in the Valley to see some of those friends. It was that precious. The other opportunity was with the work of a minister. I have always been fortunate to have a profile with some capacity to it. And so we got involved with the local African community and assisted to start some programming there. They had the first ever day camp for children in the summer, African children in the summer, under my leadership. We also started what we called the Kings County Education Committee for Black children, for Black communities. And several of us sat down to write that constitution.
Right.
It was work to build capacity.
Right.
And when we come together, it was quite inspiring. The most inspiring event I can remember used to take place at Acadia University grounds.
Okay.
It was a cultural festival, it's an academic enhancement, etc. And then it's a lunch. And we used to make this special chicken recipe of wings, a bulk quantity. That was our contribution. They were very, very popular. Everybody loved them. But my favorite story was that of my youngest daughter at the time. She turned 33 this week. She was just a baby then. Every child at that event got a certificate of recognition. Every child, whether they were going from kindergarten to grade 1 or from grade 1 to grade 2 or wherever, every child got a recognition. On the campus of Acadia University, we wanted these kids to understand they can come to places like this and start to dream about walking that hallway to receive their certificate. And so we produced an event at which they got a chance to be given an award and told, one day we want to see you walk up that stage and get your degree.
Interesting. You've talked a lot about the relationship you had with the African Nova Scotian that you met here.
Yes.
But let's come to that of the immigrants, the ones who came afterwards. Do you think we're doing enough to bring about integration, unity, and oneness within the community of African immigrants here?
There is some work going on, but it clearly needs to be boosted.
Right.
One of the difficulties with us when we come as recent immigrants is that we're very focused on trying to survive first.
Right.
It's hard work.
I know.
And in doing so, we can become disconnected from a lot of other things, including the fellow Africans, because we're too busy either studying
Right.
or going to work or trying to take care of our children. And that can be a handful right there.
Right.
But we need to also recognize that if we have uprooted our children, they need community here.
Yeah.
And somebody has to build it. It's
Sure.
not going to happen without effort.
Yeah.
So we all need to recognize that and come together in a positive way.
Right.
I know we're very diverse. We're very different. We come from so many different countries in Africa and outside of Africa.
Yeah.
But we have our common roots. We have our common roots. And because of those common roots, we can allow that strength to feed our thought patterns so that we become inspired to commit to the work of community building.
Right.
So I am a member of the Zambian Association, but the event I put on was for the African community.
Right.
It's that kind of mindset we need. That, yes, I have a comfort zone in the Zambian community and there's things we do as a Zambian community for Zambians, and that's fine.
Right.
Recently, I went to a Zimbabwean community event, etc., and I've been to others before. But we also need to work for the larger community.
Right.
It's going to take investment of time.
Right.
It's going to take recognition that
Yeah.
that's important to do. And it's going to take some sacrifice.
Definitely some sacrifice. And I see soccer in Africa, like you did mention, that was a very good, well thought out plan to be able to put the people together. Which other ways do you think the different associations here for the various countries should be considering to be able to bring us together? Because actually, together we are stronger.
Together,
What do you
we
think
are
they
stronger.
should be considering, in your opinion?
I'm a fan of cultural festivals.
Right.
Culture is so rich. It's a way of life. It allows me to understand how someone else is raised. It allows me to understand the thought patterns. It also allows us to track progress that has been made. We often ask in Central Africa, why does West Africa look further than us? They look like they are a step ahead of us. If you go to a meeting and there's various Africans, you know that the West Africans are going to be prominent. They will be prominent in voice. They have discovered their voice. So they are not afraid to speak on the issues. So whether they are coming from Ghana or Nigeria or other West African countries, that's a quality we have observed. And for those of us in Zambia, we come from the sedate side of the African continent. And so we need to learn to speak. But by watching one another and coming together, we can empower. We can learn to live together and empower one another about how to fight this fight that we have here. So we have cultural festivals, family connections.
Family connections
are such an important opportunity. Our kids need to mingle with other African kids. And so building those family connections is important. And we understand that most families tend to stay within their tribal groups. We understand that. But we encourage going beyond that.
Absolutely.
So our children have friends from several parts of Africa, which is very good. And now we are watching them develop those relationships, which allows them when they go to school to know somebody else in the school who is from Africa. And they don't feel so alone anymore.
That's a very strong point. Reverend, I really appreciate your time. But before we go, one more question.
Sure.
What do you want our viewers to learn about your community, the Zambian Association of Nova Scotia, and as well as the African community, speaking broadly, in terms of everything, both our cultures, our personalities, our identity, and all of that, as you wrap up?
Thank you. Zambia Association is small. We are a very small group. Sometimes we think we're not even 100 or barely just over that. But you can be small.
But you pull a crowd. That's a lot of people came.
You know?
Shut up.
Exactly. You can be small. You can be small and do big things.
Right.
So never underestimate the size of your community, because there are still many smaller groups of Africans coming. Just get organized and do some work. Make sure your community stays connected together. And then, of course, the larger community needs to embrace one another. Some societies are so big they don't need anybody. If Nigeria can have more than one society or more than two, they can easily develop a sense of we don't need anybody else. There's enough of us. But because we're in it together, it's a capacity building for all of us. So those of us who are stronger need to carry the others who might not be as strong. When the great Colin Powell retired from the military after a distinguished career, he was asked this question: how is it that your parents who come from Jamaica and you guys settle in the Bronx and you have all done so well and you rose to this highest rank in the military, and why is it that we're not seeing enough Africans doing that in our country? His answer was very instructive to me. He said, when the opportunities of openness in America emerged, there were many people in a position to take advantage of that new open door. My family was one of them. And so our parents educated all of us, and we all did very well in life. He said, but there were many more who were not in that position to walk through those new open doors. And my concern is that the larger America has forgotten about those who couldn't walk through the open doors and just give them labels, give them names, and are content to leave them behind. And he said, I want to carry everyone. And so in my post-retirement years, I'm going to dedicate my work to trying to elevate the left behind communities. I want to see an African community that is determined to make sure we all advance, so we can all settle down well, have good community, have good jobs, have good houses, and have good fellowship together.
Right. Wow. Couldn't have been a better place to leave it here. Reverend, thank you so much for coming to the show and giving us your thoughts about what's going on in the community.
Thank you.
And that was Reverend Dr. Elias Botale, a leader in the African community here in Nova Scotia. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and check out for other episodes of Community Updates while you're here. You can also follow us on social media and let us know what you think by sending us an email to communityupdateNS@gmail.com. Till I come your way again, I am Promise Okoye. Bye for now.